Yeah, the one that kind of goes parallel with that to some degree that I'll see is since we have the unfortunate situation of trans fats and, like quote unquote fake butter where that obviously that went badly. So like people will reference that as like, well, it gets into kind of the natural, unnatural side of things where it's like, we'll see what happened last time we tried. And it's like, at first glance, it's like, it can be compelling, but it can also be like, well, how many unnatural things have we tried that have worked out in a very positive manner versus looking at this one that didn't work? Because for all I know, like there's 1,000 other unnatural things that we tried that ended up being a huge net positive. And you're hyper focusing on this one mistake that got made and trying to say that because unnatural, therefore seed oils.
Yes, absolutely. And that is called the appeal to nature fallacy. And it is so prevalent everywhere. And that's essentially the insinuation that just because something is natural or derived from nature, it is somehow superior or not harmful compared to something synthetic. And we see that a lot with pretty much everything I deal with, vaccines and pharmaceutical interventions. And, even when you talk about organic versus conventional produce and organic versus conventional pesticides and all of that. So maybe I can kind of quickly explain how seed oils are made, because I think that hits on a good point is that, a lot of people say, well, it's not the seed oils, it's we extract them and it makes them toxic. It gives them all these toxic byproducts. So they basically say that the way we extract oils from these seeds is causing them to become toxic. So they first of all, there's a couple of different ways to extract oils, and typically we use either a heat-based or a solvent-based extraction method. So the easiest or the most efficient way is using a process called solvent extraction. So a solvent is a substance that dissolves something in it. And if, it's like dissolves like, right? So water-soluble things, you could use water as a solvent. If it's a fat thing, you can't use water because fat and water do not get along. So we use a substance, or not we, I don't extract seed oils, but seed oil manufacturers use a solvent called hexane, which is a chemical that helps to pull oil out of seeds. It's a hydrocarbon, so it agrees with fats because fats are made out of hydrocarbon tails. Those are those fatty acid chains. And people get really hung up on the name of the chemical, hexane, right? Hexane at very high concentrations, high exposures, or if you inhale it directly, can be harmful for sure. I mean, everything can be. The dose may be poison, and that's something that yes, you can die from drinking too much water, 100%. So it's really important to realize that. So they use this as a solvent, but then they purify it and they remove the hexane. So if you actually look at the seed oils in a finished product, there's a trace level, maybe. And people broadly get most of our hexane exposure when we're at the gas station pumping gas. That's coming from gasoline fumes. Now, if you are someone that works in a manufacturing facility that's dealing with hexane, maybe not even related to seed oil, certainly that can pose a risk to you if you're inhaling large quantities of it. But ultimately, that's not going to be a problem when you're creating or processing or consuming seed oils. So, a lot of people say that, these additives, they're unstable, they're turning those unsaturated fats into these trans fats. And again, there's no evidence of that. And so, when you're looking at that, that's just an unfounded claim. It's using this chemophobia and this appeal to nature fallacy to kind of spread fear about that. Now, some people, say, okay, well, it's not the processing or the creation of the fats, but it's when you're heating it for cooking. You're increasing the temperature really high, and that's going to lead to byproducts like hydroxides and aldehydes. And again, we're looking at mechanistic, right? You're taking these names of chemicals that are really just classes of chemicals and saying, oh, well, aldehydes create inflammation, hydroxides create inflammation. But in reality, there's certain oils that, can handle higher heats before that smoke point, like safflower and avocado oil and sesame oil. But in a home kitchen, you're never heating them to a level that would be a concern. And ideally, you shouldn't be reusing them anyway, so you wouldn't be consuming any byproducts that may or may not have been generated. People that are super concerned about extraction can look for cold pressed oils. So these are oils that are extracted without heat or chemicals, or expeller pressed oils. So you're literally just using mechanical crushing to extract. Those are options. They're much more expensive. And again, there's really no evidence to suggest that they're superior, but they're out there. Kind of from there, then you get into a subcategory of oils, and those are the refined oils. So basically, you take these solvent extracted seed oils and you process them further, essentially where you're removing any additional particulates. The reason that we do refining of oils is to remove impurities, and it extends the shelf life of the oil. Now, you don't want oils souring, because that can, not be great. It might not taste good, but there can also be, it can lead to contamination. And so what ends up happening is that refined oil undergoes a secondary extraction process, typically using heat again. So you can heat things up and extract things because you increase the solubility of it, or again, using a chemical extraction method. And this is giving you, again, longer shelf life, fewer particulates that are in the oils that are residuals from the seeds themselves, and it actually reduces the smoke point. And so refined oils are often really good for deep frying if you needed to, do something at really high temperature. So again, people claim that this refining process is full of chemicals, and sure, that's true because everything is a chemical. Your body is a sack of chemicals. That's all you are. You're literally just a network of chemicals. And that they're contaminated with all this toxic debris from the refining process, and they're generating inflammation and free radicals. And again, they're getting kind of hung up on the names of the solvents and the fact that the dose makes the poison. And of course, there's no scientific evidence. And they also claim that the refining process, makes the oils rancid. And again, there's just really not a lot of evidence to that. And technically, anything can be a refined oil, right? You can make a fruit vegetable oil refined oil. It's solely about how the oil is processed or extracted initially. And so, in reality, there's just not a lot of weight to those claims, but it certainly sounds scary if you come across.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter.